go. Right there, hi there dudes, this is Casual Cast number 2, and this is SjoW versus BratOK in this particular matchup, T vs T, and of course this is the Go4SC2 Cup number 37 semi-finals. So obviously the winner of this game goes through to the finals of this Cup number 7. And I know who that particular person is, and Michael, I think you have a small hunch who that is, but we're going to get this game underway nonetheless, and looks like we've got very far spawn spots from one another here. I think we've got a lengthy game on our hands here, given that it's Terran versus Terran, very defensive on both parts, and these like equidistant spawn spots that are just like so far apart. Look at that, that is just craziness. That's 8 miles, man, that's crazy. But tell me a bit about Warcraft 3. You know, did spawns influence gameplay at all in Warcraft 3 as much as they do in StarCraft 2? Because they're actually a big feature of StarCraft 2. Were they as big a sort of factor in the game in Warcraft 3?
Well, I definitely think so, but I think it was more of a racial thing as well. I mean, than a map thing. I mean, on Lost Temple, spawns mostly played a role if the non-human opponents spawned across from the human's natural, because that would give the human a lot more difficulty in expanding. But on Lost Temple, otherwise no. But obviously on other maps, close spawns make a big difference. But most of the matchup was determined by the races as opposed to the actual spawn spots, although they did factor in.
Okay. So tell me, in your brief experience with StarCraft 2 and your lengthy experience in Warcraft 3, what would you say was the Orc equivalent for in StarCraft 2? I know that I quote Grabby when he said that he started playing Protoss because he thought it was the Orc equivalent, but then he actually found that Terran was the Orc equivalent. What would you say?
You know, a lot of people associate Orc with its base unit, which is a grunt, which is very similar to a zealot. So I think that's where the comparison comes in. But I would think actually, I would probably still assume it would be Protoss. I think a lot of the units are similar. The units are more tanked. I think when you're comparing Warcraft and StarCraft, there's a lot of kind of amalgamations. I mean, clearly Zerg seems to be representative of undead, but at the same time, there's not clear parallels. Some aspects of Protoss are similar to Orc, some aspects of Protoss are similar to human, and some of them are similar to undead. Protoss can build buildings without actually having to have the unit stand and build, much like undead. Zerg has to build on the Blight equivalent, so there's no direct comparisons, I think.
Yeah, I hear you on that one. I would honestly say that Protoss, I would have to agree with you and say that Protoss is the Orc equivalent more so than Terran, though. Just given that the photon cannons, you got the towers for Orc and you got photon cannons for Protoss. You do have those tanky zealots that are kind of slow and sluggish, and sort of very similar to grunts and whatnot. So I'd have to go with that. But so I'm not sure what Grabby's angle was when he came out with Terran being much like Orc. But for those of you watching on YouTube, why don't you leave your suggestions in the comment section below and let us know what you think of the StarCraft 2 equivalents are for Warcraft 3. Looks like we've got some, bringing our attention back to the game, looks like we've got a factory underway for BratOK, well underway, and looks like we've got an early starport for SjoW. So SjoW very early with that starport, BratOK a little behind with it. Looks like BratOK's going to be throwing out a medvac, where SjoW is in fact going to be throwing out a medvac too. So very identical builds here. I think we're in this one for the long haul. Helion getting burnt in the center of the map. It's not going to go very far. Whoa, look at that. Captured by submarines. Very cool play there. And look how that Helion survives on just 6 HP at least. Wow, craziness. Looks like we've got a command center going out for BratOK right now. At this stage of the replay, I'll throw out the production tab so we can keep tabs on, excuse the pun, on what's going on in the game right now. Looks like we've got a bunker going up for SjoW as well, so he's playing kind of defensive early on. Where is that there bunker? That is the question. Oh, right on his mineral line. Interesting that. So he's obviously anticipating some kind of drop coming into his base. You know, we saw SjoW doing the exact same thing to BratOK in the last game. So we might see BratOK doing a drop a little later on. And we are seeing a drop from SjoW into BratOK's main, but it doesn't manage to do any damage whatsoever. Those medvacs and marines on the case a little quickly, and that supply depot is going to act as quite a good scout for any future drops that are coming in.
Now, I think good placement of the buildings to scout drops by both SjoW and BratOK there. I'm impressed to see that SjoW being a little bit more aggressive this game. I think maybe building up his confidence after winning the first match. BratOK being more defensive. BratOK now sending out a Viking, looking for that medvac and finding it.
That medvac's in a lot of trouble, and it's got a lot of marines in it too. It can't land marines on that little island over there, so it's going to have to fly to that spawn location and drop it and run. That's exactly what it does. These are droppings of marines as it goes along, and that medvac does get taken out, and those guys are going to have to haul ass back to their main. So it's a bit of a problem. Looks like BratOK's finally got this command center up, and he's going to be landing it there at his natural. So he's the first one for an expansion. SjoW's almost got his up, so identical play here. See, it looks like we got that siege tech early on for SjoW this time, as opposed to last game, which we waited so long for that siege tech to take part and to take place. So good play there. Obviously knows this game's going to draw out for quite a while, and BratOK just securing his position in the center of the map. He likes holding onto that Zolnaga tower, as does SjoW onto his, so they can see what's going on. Looks like we've got a bit of a drop going on from BratOK over there, just 2 Helions. They're not going to do too much there. Yep, and they're going to have to get out of there. Looks like that medvac's going to take a bit of a beating from some Vikings too. So drops not really working out for either player thus far. If you take a look at the bottom of the map at the 6 o'clock position, we've got SjoW, got some marines, and a tank just stranded in the middle of nowhere. Now what happened there, when I watched the game live, I noticed that a medvac actually got taken out just over there and had to offload its cargo in the nick of time, just before it got anywhere. So that tank and marine kind of stranded in the middle of nowhere. I think they were going for a drop over the natural of BratOK over there. BratOK just preparing himself for that harass up on the ledge with a couple of marines and a Helion. Good play though. He's going to be able to take out any kind of medvac that comes his way before it even lands. So that's probably his plan. Expansion up for SjoW. Yeah, right up there. Now, often in StarCraft 2, we talk of doing a mainnet transfer. Do you know what a mainnet transfer is, Mike?
Not 100% sure, no.
Yeah, mainnet transfer is basically when you oversaturate your mineral line with SCVs at the one end, and you build about, like, I don't know, 24 of them or so when you only really need 16, and then you go across to your natural and you dump those extra SCVs on that mineral line as your orbital command lands. So in that way you get the extra income in ASAP, which is kind of handy. Did you have much of the same thing in Warcraft 3?
There wasn't too much of that. You know, occasionally there have been times where players, once they have expanded, and if they had too much lumber, they would send through their lumber workers to act as gold miners. You know, but often that was also because in Warcraft there's an upkeep above 50 food, and players wouldn't want to go above that, and would instead prefer to try to keep the population count at 50 for as long as possible.
I see. Okay, interesting concept there. Yeah, of course there is no upkeep in StarCraft 2. And that probably adds to the whole macro priority kind of thing going on in StarCraft 2.
SjoW, they're looking for a drop, but seeing that BratOK is well prepared, I'm actually surprised that SjoW, having scouted BratOK so well and seeing that he's being very defensive, isn't taking this opportunity to expand more himself. BratOK, on the other hand, is building another command center, obviously planning to expand further on, possibly in the bottom corner island or possibly by the rich mineral fields, although the destructible rocks are still there.
I think SjoW's position here by the Zollner guitar is kind of prohibiting him from expanding at that rich mineral expansion, and that's why he's taking up camp over there with the siege tanks. So a good move there, getting that early siege research and establishing a position over there. Of course, BratOK now is forced to expand.